In today's digital dominion, we're bombarded with content 24/7. But even after that, it's impeccable speakers that leave a permanent imprint on our minds. When we listen to people like Barack Obama, Viola Davis, Emma Watson, Sandeep Maheshwari, not only we stand in awe of their brilliant articulation, but a part of us wants to speak like them. In today's video, we will be learning the best techniques to deliver the most compelling and persuasive speeches. Hey guys, how have you all been? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Pulkit. First of all, thank you so much for your immense love on my debate video. Now, basis the love and support that you've shown on that video, I thought it was now time to make a video for you people wherein we talk about the best techniques of delivering the perfect speech. Now, the techniques that we're going to be discussing in this video has been articulated in a course format called Rhetoric by the professors of the prestigious Harvard University. I took that course and it blew my mind away. And we'll be discussing all the elements that you can incorporate to ace every speech that you deliver. I would highly advise you to go grab a notebook and a pen because we're going to be taking notes this time. Number one, you must know what your goal is. See, everyone in their lives will deliver one form of speech or the other basis what position they're in. So for example, if you're a student taking part in a speech competition, your goal as of now is to wow the audience and to convince them of the belief that you're delivering on. If, let's say, you're a student who's competing for a student body president role, your goal at that moment of time is to convince people to vote for you. If we are well aware of what is it that we want to achieve from our speech, our articulation becomes way more simpler and we can understand how do we want to proceed with that speech. Number two, build your argument based on any of these three modes of appeal. Now, as per Rhetoric, which is the course by the Harvard University on public speaking, there are three modes of appeal which you can incorporate in your speech. Let's understand each and every appeal one by one. The first mode of appeal is logos, which is also called as the appeal to reason. In this, whatever speech you're giving, you will try to win over and support that particular argument by giving a logical reason. For example, if you're giving a speech on democracy is the best form of government, you can give a logical reason. Like recently, owing to the farmers' protest, the central government had to repeal the farm laws which was introduced by them in the parliament. It's only in a system of democracy wherein people can promulgate their opinions and can express their dissatisfaction towards the government without the fear of being detained. You can give such reasons to solidify the statement that you're actually delivering upon. The second mode of appeal is ethos, which is also called as the ethical appeal. Over here, you add credibility to your statement or to your speech by talking about some of the most credible sources. So you can think about using appropriate data, credible magazines, credible quotes by experts. So for example, if you're actually giving a speech on democracy, you can incorporate quotes by world famous world leaders. You can incorporate quotes of people like Barack Obama to your speech, which will give instant credibility to the speech that you're delivering upon. Now, when you use the ethical sources of appeal, this is a prominent wow factor for the audience and for the judges that are judging your debate or the speech competition. Because what you're doing is, this shows that you've done your research. This shows that you've actually gone ahead and dived deeper in terms of the foundation of the speech that you're talking about. And this shows that you're not that person who's merely scrolled the first few articles of Google and written their speech. When you talk about credible sources, you solidify your own statement. And so this is something which is non-negotiable. So if you're going to be delivering your speech, ensure that you talk about quotes from famous and influential people in regard to the niche in which you're speaking, in regards to the domain in which you're speaking. Number 2, quote data, facts and credible newspapers and magazines as to what they have analyzed. This increases the chance of you emerging victorious in this splendid competition that you took part in. Now, the third mode of appeal is called as pathos, or the appeal of invoking emotions. Now, you can actually evoke emotions which could be either positive, like pride or hope, or negative, like fear. For example, if you're talking about democracy, you can say something like, what's the alternative to democracy? Every man, woman and child under another Hitler? So what you're doing here is, you're invoking an emotion of fear. Your judges and your audience are going to understand that what's the alternative to democracy, because any alternative to democracy is even more frightening. And this is what you've convinced. Evoking emotions is nothing but the art of brilliant storytelling. Understand, every human being loves stories. Every human being loves to feel things. There's a reason that we keep on consuming more drama, more content, more shows, more movies, even though we know that more or less every movie will talk about love. Every movie will talk about friendship. Every movie will talk about any of those feelings. Because as human beings, we love to feel those emotions. And so when you invoke these emotions, either positive or negative, again, you're creating a wow factor in front of the entire audience, in front of the entire public. Whether it's Barack Obama while delivering his presidential speech, or Viola Davis delivering her speech when she received an Emmy, you can see that they invoke emotions. Number 1, we must know what our goal is. Number 2, we must use any of the 3 appeals mentioned to ensure that there's a wow factor in our speech. Number 3, we have to follow a well-defined flow. What do I mean by a well-defined flow? Let me explain. So this is how the flow is supposed to be. Number 1, introduction. Number 2, narration of the context. Number 3, we'll be talking about facts and evidence. Towards the end of the speech, you could also compare it with its alternatives and solidify on the fact that why democracy is the best. And finally, we will conclude it. Now, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to read a speech in front of you and I'm going to help you understand how are the best speeches written and how this particular speech follows the organized flow that I just talked about. So read along with me. This is Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. So please read along with me. 5 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. From this brilliant introduction, you understand that what the subject is going to be. So this is how you introduce about the topic. Now from here, we completely understand that with this particular speech, the emphasis of Martin Luther King Jr. is going to be the condition of the African American people in America. And we understand that even though in terms of the constitutional right, they may have received equality, but still there's a long way to go. So what he does is he invokes emotion from the very beginning and he talks about the condition and then he mentions but 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. So from here you understand the importance of brilliant introduction, because this is your chance to hook your audience and your judges. So introduction on point, understand your introduction should stand out. Your introduction should start in a form of a brilliant storytelling. Number 2, the context. So in this, following the introduction, there has to be a context. Over here, the context you easily understood that the context that we're going to talking about is the condition of African American people and the brutality that they've suffered and still continue to suffer. Number 3 was we're going to be presenting facts. Let's read some parts of this speech and see where has that been incorporated. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note, insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check. A check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. Now, if you see, the speech incorporates a brilliant metaphor, as in a bad check which came back with insufficient funds. So, you also have to understand that while you're talking about the introduction and while you're talking about the context, if you use 1 or 2 metaphors, that is going to be great, because again, that's going to impart a wow factor to your speech. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from the Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountain inside. Let freedom ring. So over here, you see that this is how he is concluding his speech. So the words over here exudes that the speech is about demanding freedom for all the citizens, specifically for the African American people, specifically for the people of color, and what sort of freedom they demand. And also, if you see that this speech incorporates showing versus telling. So rather than saying that we want freedom in all parts of the country, the speech incorporates the name of the several parts. So the speech incorporates names such as New York, Tennessee, and Colorado. So this is called showing versus telling. So rather than randomly telling that we want freedom in all parts of the country, the speech solidifies itself, the speech beautifies itself by saying and mentioning the names of the states, names of the cities in that particular country. Is one of the favorite points of mine, which I like to call generalize the personal point. So whenever we're delivering a speech or whenever we're taking part in any debate competition, there is a part of us that feels strongly about that particular topic that we're speaking upon. So for example, if you're speaking on democracy, I am sure that you would feel strongly about that. So what I want to tell you is, you might feel something which is personal in terms of that particular topic, and you should definitely incorporate that. But if you want to incorporate that personal opinion of yours in that topic, ensure that you present it to the judges and present it to the audiences as if that is the part of the longer run, or that is going to benefit everyone in the longer run. So over here, we want to ensure that it is not solely our opinion, but we want to ensure that it is for everyone's benefit. The most cliched yet the most crucial, practice. See, we all have brilliant things happening in our mind, But if we want to articulate them well, we need to practice. So what you have to do is you must write your speech in advance and practice. Go in front of the mirror and practice as much as you can. Not only it improves your diction and pronunciation, it will ensure that you're confident. And while you're practicing, you can also practice your hand gestures and see if you're overdoing it. Every time that you practice your speech goes in your mind subconsciously. So even if you forget something while you're on stage, you will not stutter, but you will have immense things to talk about. So practice, practice and practice. My best way to practice is going in front of the mirror and looking at myself. Or you can also record yourself and see how you're doing. Because when you practice, you also see if you're not being repetitive, if you're making sense. Because we only get to talk about 2-3 minutes, we don't want to be repetitive and we want to cover as much spectrums of the topic as we possibly can. So I hope you've understood every tip and every technique, and I hope you've noted it down. Let me quickly reiterate them. Number 1 was to understand the intent of our speech. Number 2, we must use any of the 3 forms of appeals that I mentioned. Number 3, we will be following a well-defined flow. 4, we'll generalize a personal point and we'll tell a personal story in a way it connects with the general public. And number 5, we will practice, practice and practice. So that was all for this particular video. Thank you so much for showing immense love on my public speaking videos. I will ensure to create more content that helps improve your public speaking skills. And with that said, I will see you guys in the next video. Keep well, do well, practice well and keep on reading. I will see you in the next video.